This week on the O The Anthem podcast, we are talking all about COVID-19 and not just in politics or in social life, but right here in this house because we are self-quarantining because Rob is sick. We'll get into the $2 trillion relief bill, the response by Trump and all the governors across the country, as well as at the very end, and I want to save it for the spoilers so people who have seen it can get into it and the people who don't can get out. But we got Tiger King talk this week on the podcast. We are not going to leave any stone unturned. Tune in right now. You're not going to want to miss it. Hey there, cats and kittens. It's Corey from The Anthem. This is Corey, and this is the Anthem podcast.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's Rob. Welcome to episode 312 of the Anthem podcast, coming to you, as always, from the hashtag OTA LA studios, high above the 110 freeway in downtown Los Angeles, California. Thank you for joining us.
Yes. Sorry for the belated nature of this week's podcast. Also, apologies for a little bit of a different look here. We are trying to practice social distancing a little bit more, especially because Rob is feeling under the weather.
Yeah.
So
we'll get into that.
God, I feel like
more.
I look like I'm in the void here.
A little bit, yeah. But it's all white. I'm the one who's in the kitchen. If you guys have been checking out my Instagram videos, that's the same kitchen there, the infamous kitchen. But in between episodes, whether we're late or on time, you can, of course, check us out on social media at O The Anthem everywhere, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and youtube.com/O The Anthem for all the videos. But let's just dive in because we're on a ticking clock this week.
Yeah.
This week's episode brought to you by coffee. Coffee. Thank you for giving me any energy at all.
Yeah, I mean, well, I guess we should start here because we were yesterday. You went to the hospital to hopefully get a test.
Yeah.
And you were turned away.
Yeah. So I mean, well, let's just dive in on that part. Let me just say this, and I'll take Core away because I don't want him associated so much with what I'm about to say necessarily. I try to protect him from those things, but guys, listen.
Should I headphones? Should I earmuffs here?
Earmuffs, everybody. Let me just tell you this. I am experiencing this. Well, hey, newsflash, because I haven't really talked about it on social media at all. I've been posting a lot. Actually, I'll bring Corey back for this part. I've been posting a lot, which was weird. People on Slack at work today noticed that I was out sick, and they were like, hey, you haven't posted on Instagram, and you're out sick today. Do you have it?
Yeah.
And spoiler alert, probably. And I say probably because, and this part I'll take him away for. I cannot get a test, and I can't get a test because although they have tests at the hospital or the urgent care that I went to for Kaiser, they won't give me one. And they won't give me one because I don't meet the federal qualification guidelines for testing. Those qualifications are you have a fever greater than 100 degrees that's lasted more than 5 days. Check. My fever has been between 99 and 101 for about 5 days. And then for the last 4 or 5 days has been between 101 and 103. A slight cough, difficulty breathing, tightness in the chest. Check. I'll have all of those. And the fever continuing, which obviously I still have. So I have all of those, except what I don't have is the ability to quantify where I may have come into contact with someone. Now, I'm going to go ahead and put my conspiracy theory hat on, and this is what I've been talking about with people today. What they want is to be able to put me into a cluster. They want to say, hey, you contacted this person, and then that's how you got it. And the likelihood is that if I have it, I got it from riding in an Uber. I got it from being at a grocery store. I joked on a live stream last week about how, actually maybe, but in the episode last week, but I walked into CVS after jokingly having my mask on beforehand, and then I'll bring Corey back for this part. And then a woman like 10 feet from me like coughed in my general direction, and I was like, okay, and I put the mask back on. I wasn't going to wear it, but I did after she coughed in my direction. And I think that they are artificially keeping the numbers down of, hey, we don't know how this person got it. What they want us to say, you know that you were in contact with that person, and now he's positive and you're positive, and we can trace back. So I've been in touch with my doctor regularly. We're tracking the fever. We are tracking the other symptoms. I am a mild case. I think, strangely, we were watching Anderson Cooper today, and Chris Cuomo did an excellent job of describing how I feel, which is there are times when I feel perfectly normal and perfectly fine. When we were talking about doing the podcast yesterday, I was like, I just don't feel up to it. But today I felt perfectly fine, and we were starting to get set up. Now I'm feeling a little run down, and the energy is waning, and it just kind of comes in waves like that. Sometimes I'll be coughing sometimes the coughing keeps me up at night, but there's other times when, I don't know, it's been probably an hour since I had that coughing fit, and that's just how it is. The fever is pretty constant. The feeling like I'm wearing a spandex band or a Lycra band around my midsection is pretty constant. But it's just one of those things. So, yes, yesterday I went to urgent care at the direction of my doctor, and they kept me in the little quarantine area, which is in, by the way, to make you feel like a fantastic American patient, the parking garage. Top-notch healthcare in America. They put me through other protocols, and the doctor basically pulls me out of the treatment area to a little like discussion area where the woman with, full biohazard gear, not the hazmat suit, but just shy of that.
Right.
Sits down with me.
The civilian version of it?
The civilian version, yeah. She's got like the mask, the N95 mask, then the surgical mask over it to hide the fact that she's got that on, even though I can tell. And then the plate glass piece over it. She sits down with me and she's like, so here's what I can do for you. I don't want you going to work, and I would like you to stay out of the population. If there's people you haven't been in contact with for the last few days, you should not be in contact with them. Isolate yourself as much as possible. We classify you as influenza-like unconfirmed illness. And I was like, well, it seems like you should probably test me for, this virus that's going around. She said, well, because you can't identify a person who's tested positive that you've been in touch with, our federal guidelines don't allow us to test you, which sounds to me a lot like, hey, we're trying to artificially keep the numbers down.
Right.
I saw, while I was sitting there, an entire case of tests, which I imagine is a gross 144 test kits that had been unopened. So I imagine there's also an open case somewhere with test kits in it. So they have tests to give people, but they didn't give me one. Instead, I got a diagnosis of influenza-like, nonspecific, undiagnosed illness. And I feel like shit. And I felt like shit for the last 5 days. I felt bad for 5 days before that, but we are at a new level of bad. In the last 5 minutes that I've been talking, I went from pretty freezing. Actually, before we started, I think I said it was super hot in here. And right when we started, I was pretty cold. And now I'm back to sweating, so that's fun. Basically, I'm going through menopause right here across the table from Corey. So this, again, I'm going to quote Chris Cuomo because I think he's the best way that he put it way better than I could. Just like, it's scary. It's insidious because you feel fine. You feel like you can go out. I'm sure there are people walking around right now who think that they are fine. Who maybe have feel a little warm or got like a little bit of a hot flash, and they're like, you know what, totally fine. But I'll take Corey away for this last comment, and that's, you guys should be terrified. If you're one of the 20% of Americans who's not under a stay-at-home order right now, you should absolutely be staying at home anyway. If you are one of those people, you should be terrified. I've seen the way that the medical system is responding to this, and the doctors and nurses on the front line looked me in the eye, and they wanted to do so much more, but they could not. The only tests that they had left at the urgent care that I went to, were provided by the federal government, which means they have to follow federal guidelines in order to give me a test, and I don't meet those requirements. There are some people I know here in LA who had tests before that were state-provided tests. They got tested, There was like a lottery in order to get a test. They got tested because they were under a little bit looser guidelines with the state tests. We're now out of those. Now all we have are federally provided tests. So we don't. This is a terrifying thing. I'm not terrified because I'm sick. I mean, I've been joking about like, oh, this is it. This is going to be the end. I mean, most of the time I feel okay. I'm tired. I'll bring Corey back. He can testify. I've been sleeping a lot. Basically, the entire morning I slept while people just went along with life in the room. And I don't know how I slept through all of it, but I did. It's an insidious thing. So everyone out there should be very careful. And I guess the point we were going to get to later, we are going to try to continue to do this week on week. It may be delayed like it was this week. I just didn't have it in me last night. I probably don't have it in me to do a full show. This was pretty exhausting just talking for this long. So yeah. I'll let Corey take it over. He can talk about Tiger King all by himself. But we're going to try to push through. I was kind of waiting on an episode so that we could talk about it here now, but now that it's out, I'll try to post more about it. But yeah, so I'm sick. I don't know what it is. I don't know that I ever will. I feel like I will be one of those people who comes out of this and says, I might have had it. Who knows? And the way that the viruses work, I can probably get tested for it in 6 months.
Yeah.
When there are tests available and be like, oh yeah, so you had it at some point in the last 6 months. I'm like, I know when that was. Yeah.
Well, I mean, like what I think concerns me as somebody who is not feeling sick at the moment, but being in contact with you is it almost feels like as if when as opposed to will I, like there's an aspect of that which we're trying to do everything we can to keep you separated from us a little bit while not like, isolating you completely, like
sticking me in the closet. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think honestly, if I was to wish a version on people, this is the version I would wish on you.
Yeah.
It's like not even the worst flu I've ever had, but it's lasted longer than a flu. And I felt like worse than a flu at points, but then I woke up at 2:00 today, 2:00 in the afternoon, and I was like, you know what? I'm feeling some energy. I'm going to log on and try to do a little work. And obviously like I'm up for it. Let's do it. Let's do the podcast tonight. So like I was down for it. I would prefer this over some of the other versions I'm hearing about where people are like going on ventilators. They test positive and the next day they're on a ventilator. Like that's the thing with the viruses. They mutate in every person's body. So if I have to wish it on someone, I wish this version on people. The reality is 100% of people are likely going to get this before we're done with it. When you hear people talking about flatten the curve, what they mean is not stopping people from getting it, but delaying.
Don't let everyone get it all right now. Like
absolutely, because that's when we have all of those cases of people ending up on ventilators at once.
I do feel like there is something that can still be done about like keeping people from getting it if more was done to keep people out of the public eye. But I mean, like, the problem is that we're seeing videos, even in California, where like it's, people are being pretty respectful of the whole thing. If you're looking at just like Google Maps at 8 a.m. on the 405, you'd think that you're living in a completely different world these days than it was prior to stay-at-home orders and stuff like that. But at the same time, you're seeing thousands of people flock the Brentwood farmers market because farmers markets were allowed to be an entity that was allowed to keep going along with like grocery stores.
Well, and they responded. They moved the stalls further apart so that people weren't interacting. They just weren't expecting 5,000 people to show up to the farmers market.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I mean, listen.
I'm sure in a lot of them were saying like, oh, this is an opportunity for me to get outside and go somewhere.
Yep. And they did. But
maybe
so
in open air, it's better or something, like whatever the case may be. But
it is. I mean, and that's what they've been saying is like being outside and exercising is good. I tried to do that. Last weekend we went out a bunch. I didn't really feel up for it since then. Probably should, because getting some fresh air would probably be good. And the danger is way less than being in an enclosed space, but it's not zero.
Yeah.
And when you stick 5,000 people in a small area like a farmer's market, it's still pretty high.
Well, and I mean, the other thing is too, like, say tomorrow you wake up and you're better. Mm-hmm. And, not that you'd be instantly 100% the next day, but, tomorrow you're getting out of it. You're clearing up of the issues here. At what point, I still don't feel like anybody really knows at what point are you not a carrier to somebody else still,
Well, so the good news is, even if I have the long, and this is what the woman was sharing with me, the doctor who I spoke to at urgent care yesterday. She said that we see two versions. We see the 2 to 5 day, and we see the 14 to 17 day. She's like, I'm going to guess that you got the latter one, but it seems to be a mild version, which we're telling people to treat at home. The good news with this thing is because we don't sneeze a lot, it's really a coughing thing, that once you hit the stage where I am now, I am not very contagious because your body is at the point, these symptoms are the body getting a handle on it and starting to fight it off.
Right.
The fever peaking and then staying high is your body saying, all right, we know what this is now. Now we're going to kill it.
Yeah.
The coughing is trying to clear your upper respiratory system.
It's the oil temperature going up in the car because you've been pushing it a little harder.
Been running it a little hard. Yeah. So like all of this stuff is your body responding. And like if I was to cough now, it's the body expelling dead virus, not the virus saying, hey, I need to be spread more. Yeah. So the good news is I'm on the backside of it. Now, that's using traditional virology on something that we don't really understand yet. Right. But one of the things I wanted to get to later is like, don't trust social media either, because there was like a story about a guy from Pakistan that a bunch of people shared to me where it's like, oh, he tested positive, then he got rid of it, then he tested positive again. That's not likely to happen because when you get it, you are then it's like smallpox. You can only have smallpox once in your life.
And there's other ones too. Like there was one that I had brought up to you, and you sort of gave me the like, oh, what kind of Facebook shit are you falling for? Yeah, with ibuprofen. Yes, but I mean, like, so I did look into that one. Just so fill in the audience. There was a report that was saying that if you're sick, don't take ibuprofen because there is things inside of ibuprofen which will make it harder for you to fight it. Yes. And if you need some sort of like pain relief, to use Tylenol or something like that.
Yes, instead.
And basically, the science behind it, which I guess did get blown up a little bit by Facebook, but is not entirely untrue, is that there is a slight degradation to your immune system that you take when you take ibuprofen. Yeah. That for... You know, if your immune system goes down 1% on a normal day where you just have a headache or something like that, it's not going to be a big deal. Right. If you need every single ounce of your immune system to fight something, like if you're going to be on a ventilator or something like that, you shouldn't be doing something that might mess with your immune system.
So, and I will say, after you told me that, I asked the doctor at urgent care about it, just because, despite the fact of me thinking it was a Facebook bullshit story. Yeah. I was just, I had taken ibuprofen and I just let her know. And she said, okay, so what they have recommended is that if you're going to take cold and flu meds, to only take ones that have acetaminophen in it. Because yes, it's true, but the impact is null, really. Yeah. And the thing that she said to do is to take cold and flu meds that have acetaminophen in it. And then if you need flu...
Raven is literally like beaking on my foot.
If you need to keep the fever down in between dosage, obviously don't take more acetaminophen because that can have a really negative impact on your liver. Right. Which is important to your immune system. So you need that. But to take ibuprofen in between if necessary. She said the science was really blown up, and yes, basically what you explained, that it's a small impact, and what they are saying is keeping your fever at a reasonable level is more important than the small impact it would have.
Well, the impact the ibuprofen would have on a normal person isn't worth the side effect that you might feel, but it's not a again, if you can't breathe, then go to the hospispital. Absolutely.
And that's she basically, the end of that conversation was, whatever you're doing at home is probably fine, because I feel like you are the kind of patient who can deal with this at home. Yeah. If any of these things were to impact you, we would not be having this conversation. You'd be going upstairs right now. But since your body seems to be fighting it off just fine, 10 days in, keep track of the next 4 to 7 days. And then we'll see where it goes from there, that none of these things are really going to impact you. Right. But my automatic response to all of those stories is do not believe them, because people are sharing stories about martial law is going to be declared in 48 hours because, my cousin's ex-husband's friend's girlfriend's brother is in the National Guard and they're mobilizing, and that's going to be because they're going to stop looting. Do not believe those stories. Like, here's what I'll say. The whole point of the underreaction was to stop panic. And I get that. There is a level of underreaction to keep people from panicking. Didn't work. People still went out and bought all the toilet paper off the aisles.
Right.
But
I mean, to be fair, in retrospect, I guess that's not the worst thing.
Right. Could have been much worse. They could have broken
Could have
the
been
front
food
windows.
storages and
Yeah. Gas is as cheap as it's ever been.
Yeah.
Although there were a few pictures of people like filling up plastic containers with gas, which I just thought was humorous. But so panic was kept
put it
to
in
a
my
minimum.
Tupperware.
Yeah. Panic was kept to a minimum. The problem was there's a difference between underreacting publicly and then reacting appropriately behind the scenes and just underreacting. And I feel like that is where we really got to. So, no, we're not about to declare martial law. A stay-at-home order is not martial law. It's...
I mean, to be fair, so martial law is basically the next step that can be taken, but...
There's a lot of steps in between.
Oh, I know.
It's the big step.
There's lots of intermediary things that can be done, but I mean, like, as far as the everyone stays in their home and we're ordering you to do it, and we will like arrest you if you will kind of thing of martial law. That's kind of a step that's hard to come back from. So it's one that nobody really wants to do. It's the nuclear bomb option.
It is definitely the nuclear option.
There's no nuking Japan and like acting like we didn't do it, you know?
Well, and the problem is once you do it, you have to leave it into effect until the end because you can't do it for a little while and then wind it back and then do it for a little while and wind it back.
Well, because if you do, people are going to say like, oh, I can go to the movies now, or I can go to
we're done, right? Yeah. This thing's all over.
I can go to the park and sweat around and get on people.
And accidents happen when you say we're going to do martial law for 3 weeks. And then you say, okay, so tomorrow at midnight, we're winding it back. Somebody sees that report, but doesn't see the report 4 hours later when they're like, no, we're extending it for another few weeks.
Well, I mean, like,
and then they are outside.
I think there was a lot of hope, especially here in California from particularly Garcetti and Newsom, the mayor of LA and the governor of California, that like people would hear the stay-at-home order and realize that, you know, yes, you can leave your house. You can do little things, but don't like be clogging up the roadways. Don't be going to work. Don't be doing anything you don't have to be doing. And I feel like for the most part it's been taken true, but then people have taken any kind of little leniency and blown it was like, okay, so we can leave our house, so let's just go hiking this weekend, and then the trails are filled with people and the beaches are filled with people. And it's like, yes, we were trying to say that you could have the park to quietly like escape to. You could walk to the park and like take a little jaunt and stay away from people and go home. But if everyone's just gonna flock to the parks and we're closing the park,
and it's the problem with LA, and I see a lot of other states doing it, and it's not a huge problem. Maryland, the parks are still open.
Right.
But that's because there is no place where 1 million people are going to congregate in the parks. And apparently Runyon was literally just like people lining the hiking pass. And you can't do that in LA. You can't have it that way. But people were basically just saying exactly what you said. I can get out. Okay, great. I'm just going to go do this little thing. But when 1 million people decide to do it, now we have to close that too.
Right.
And it's unfortunate because it means people are kind of stuck at home, but you have to.
Guys, I understand. I'm going crazy too.
Yeah.
There's nothing to just have 20 minutes alone by myself in my house. Something that I never thought I needed so badly, but it just to live my normal life of like, it's time for lunch. I'm gonna go out for lunch. I'm gonna go sit somewhere and eat a burrito. Like that is all. And it's not. This isn't the end of the world. Like my life will go on, and I'm not trying to say woe is me or anything like that. I'm just saying that we're all making sacrifices here. All of our lives are different. But if we can all do this and do it together, then it'll be over sooner. Like,
and that's so much the important thing.
It's like the recess. Like we can't go to recess until everyone sits down, and I'm seeing everyone running around, and I'm just like, guys, like I know you're getting your recess out right now, but if
you just calm down, we can all go outside.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the thing is it's strange to me that we're not doing so many things nationally because I think you and I, more educated people, can look at it and see that very clearly. And I don't understand people who are like, oh, well, they said we can go to parks, so let's go to parks. Yes, but when you get there and you see that the parks are full, we are now not accomplishing the thing that we need to accomplish.
Well, and also like like having people come over to your house for like.
No crowds of less than 10. Okay, I'm gonna invite 9 of my friends over. Like that's not the point.
I saw a nurse friend of mine on Instagram with fucking like 18 people at his house the other night, and I'm just like, what in the hell is going on here?
Well, because I think Maryland's still at 20 or less, right?
Yeah,
or 25 or less. So it's like technically I'm not violating.
Hey, sorry, bud, you can't make it. We gotta.
And it's.
Oh man.
The problem is our generation and the previous one have never had to sacrifice something like this.
Yeah.
And I think again, not to make Chris Cuomo
or if anything like short-lived, like anything that got interrupted by 9/11 was for like a week maybe.
Yeah.
Like,
and I'm literally. I visited New York in October of September of 2011 to go visit a college. Like, yes, if there was an interruption, very short-lived.
Yeah.
And I know I wasn't the first one there. Like, we planned that trip and then kind of replanned it around 9/11, but I was there in October. But the idea, like, my dad was born in 1937. And so he, as a small child, was in the Depression, and then, as a teenager, kind of through the end of World War II. But he remembers, and of course, being out in the country the way they were, his mom kind of kept him on that Depression mindset for most of his childhood. He left home in 1955 or 1952, and they literally were like, we save everything, we use everything, scrap metal, that breaks down, we fix it. And that was in 1950s when everybody else was like, that car has a broken tire. I'm going to buy a new car. Sure. Don't worry about fixing it. Throw it away. The
Channel 2 on the TV doesn't work. Is there a Channel 2? I don't know. Let's just get a new TV.
It is Don Draper in Mad Men where they have the picnic and he just picks up the blanket and walks away. Like that's all the rest of the country, just like leaving trash everywhere. And my grandmother out there like, did you leave an apple core out there? Throw that on the compost pile right now. But so like, and for him, it's just like, he's in that mindset now. And I only got to talk to my parents briefly, but I'm glad I didn't go home.
Yeah.
Just look at this. But just my dad is already in that mindset of like, it's wartime now. It's a different war, but we're fighting a war. Sacrifice, stay at home, do the whole thing. And our generation, the one after us and the one right before us, have never had to do that. It's incompatible with their lifestyle. I couldn't
even, and I get that I'm one of those people, and I know a lot of other people who like that, who constantly need to have something happening. There needs to be multiple stoves going and stuff.
Yeah.
But this is a collective understanding by everybody that you are going to stay home. You're going to sleep in. If you can work from home, you're going to work from home. You're going to watch Netflix. You're going to catch up on a project or a hobby or something like that. Like you're going to get the opportunity to do now what you've always sort of wished for.
Yeah.
That I had 2 months to work on something. So I mean, like as horrible as it is, and as many people will die, and we're not trying to minimize any of that, for the normal everyday people who are trying to make the sacrifice of staying at home to quell this, like it could be a lot worse. You could literally be in war, like a wartime used to mean going to war. So like,
I mean, we're not old enough to do that, but you guys could, all you influencers out there. By the way, fever update. The fever has now turned to chills, and the sweat that I was working on now really cooled me off.
Freezing across your body.
Yeah, basically so. But I do want to talk about a little bit of national stuff.
Yeah.
Because of course, everyone should keep an eye out. If you've paid taxes in the last, 2 years, because everybody's got a big old check coming.
Eventually.
Eventually.
Yeah. I think it's supposed to be before the end of April, but who knows? Like,
well, good news that they're pushing the rent to the they're not.
No,
all right, yeah.
Some places apparently have managed that, but not
California, unfortunately. But yeah, so let me find the story. So there's a breakdown of, for those of you who haven't heard about this, $2 trillion bailout bill, which, by the way, I believe makes up 1/5. Will add 1/5 of the national debt. We were at 10 trillion. Now we're going to add another 2 trillion on top of it. And Corey asked me not to be super judgmental. I'm going to try to roll back the communist in me to talk about it. But $1,200 for every American household. You get double that if you are a
married couple.
But
I mean, that's basically $1,200 for each of you anyway.
Yeah. Additional $500 if you have per child, and that's up to $75,000 per year.
Yeah, I mean, right? if you make over 75,000, there's a de-escalating amount of money that you get up until I think if you make more than like 250 or something like that, then you don't get anything.
And it's adjusted gross income as well. So that means like, although I made more than 75,000, my adjusted gross, I think, put me down below 75,000. So I would get the full 1,200. And if they kept your return in the last few years because of student loans, you can get that money back too. So I tweeted that story. There's a number you call, and like Sally Mae is like, "Oh, sorry, we kept your tax return the last couple of years. Here, have that back." I gotta make that call, by the way. Hopefully, I'll be feeling up to that tomorrow. So that makes up about $500 billion.
Yeah. Of
the $2 trillion.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, is a sizable portion. But then I asked myself, that still leaves $1.5 trillion. Where is that money going?
Well, let me say up front that the things that are beneficial to everyone in some way or another that will come through this is that I think there was like 30 billion of that is towards small business loans, which will be essentially 2.5 times your monthly annual payroll as a lump sum. So if your payroll for 1 month is 10,000,
349 billion.
Oh, 300. Is that what it is?
Yes, 349 billion for the Small Business Administration.
I think maybe one thing of what I was looking at in that was 25 billion or something like that. Because I think it's separated into large scale, medium. Because I mean, like bailing out the airlines, part of that too. Well, so or like bailing out cruise ship, you know.
So the SBA, Small Business Administration. Here's the thing: they have now 349 billion, but it's for separate loans. You can get a loan for rent, and you can get a loan for utilities, and you can get a loan for payroll. You can get a loan for mortgage if you own the building, which is separate from the rent. So I have a feeling these are all broken down into $50 billion allotments.
Yeah.
And you can obviously you can't get the mortgage and the rent.
Yeah.
If you had one or the other.
But the idea being that if you have less than 50 employees, then you can basically get a loan for however much it would take to employ all the people that you have for 2.5 months.
8 weeks, but 8 weeks starting when they passed it. And
right.
Then there's some talk about pushing it backwards for.
Well, I mean, it could get extended if the situation applies, but I think the idea being that, and you know, all these being forgiven if it's used towards paying for keeping all your employees on payroll. Right. So if you're a restaurant and you're keeping all your employees on payroll the same way you usually did, then all the money that you would get from this loan would not have to be paid back. And
essentially, like, again, in downtown LA, a lot of the businesses are open, but they're kind of on skeleton staff. So it's like everybody went from full-time to part-time. You're working 3 days, and we're just trading out staff. Well, this way you can pay them as if they're a full-time 7-day or 5-day-a-week staff, and you use that loan money to do it because obviously you don't have the revenue. You probably don't even have the revenue coming in to pay part-time the way that you would have before. $25 billion is for the passenger air carriers, $4 billion for cargo air carriers, $17 billion for businesses determined to be important to the national security. Mm-hmm. Those guys are really suffering these days.
Yeah.
By the way, I'll put it in a reminder. We are now in year 20 of the war in Afghanistan, which is not over, and which Lockheed Martin, Boeing, all the defense contractors have made.
Northrop Grumman
have made trillions of dollars.
Yeah.
A Javelin missile costs $80,000 to the government, but it costs about $3,000 to produce. So, you know, it's one of those like, well, the first one cost us $1 trillion. So we charge you $80,000 for them, but it was the development of that missile that took so much money.
Yeah.
And then we're firing, the old thing of an $80,000 Javelin fired by a guy who doesn't make that in a year at a guy who doesn't make that in a lifetime. But that's so those guys are clearly hurting, and we need to make sure we give them their $454 billion or whatever.
I mean, I will say this: I am normally I wouldn't mind squabbling over how odds and ends were put together in this bill. I don't want to do that right now because I just sort of want to just let things lay.
I'm trying to roll it back. I'm
trying to concern myself with the things that need attention right now. Anything that isn't right now is going to have to wait. There's a lot of pork on both sides of this bill.
Absolutely.
It's sort of the way it's just going to happen.
Yep.
And I would argue that the pork on the Democratic side isn't as rancid as the pork on the Republican side. But again, they control the Senate and the executive branch, so
got to do what you got to do.
They kind of have a way about this one.
It's Alexandria Cortez, as much as I really don't want to. And everybody note, when Corey had a cough there, he coughed into his elbow, the vampire cough. That's very appropriate. Thank you, Corey. Since we're worried about him infecting the entire house.
No, I just got to make sure that I don't give anyone a sleeper hold.
Yeah, no sleeper holds.
Properly.
Alexandria Cortez basically described this bill as a poison pill. And she was absolutely right that, like, you know, is there stuff that the Democrats shoved in that we shouldn't have? Probably. But the Republicans shoved in a lot of stuff. So we've made a poison pill here that we all have to swallow. Because otherwise, people get nothing.
Yeah.
And you've put us in a situation where we either have to not vote no for this and have that on our record forever, or vote for it and just swallow the poison.
Well, like, so let me put it this way. There's a lot of things that I'm upset about in what happened here. I don't like how big the bill is, because that's all money that eventually we're going to have to pay back in some sort of way. And, while I think keeping the economy afloat for a little while we're going through this situation will help us sort of like get back on track quicker when we're on the other side, and perhaps we would be able to make money easier that we'd be able to pay back all this money that we're taking out. The thing that bothers me is that, like, McConnell held up this whole thing for 4 days because he wanted to take a weekend in Kentucky with judges. Yeah. Rather than come back to Washington and talk about it. There's a lot of people who are talking about what's right and what's wrong while Rand Paul is, testing positive and swimming in the pool and working out of the gym. And, 4 senators missed the bill because they were all around Rand Paul at the time, and they were all self-quarantined and couldn't make the vote. So it was 96-0, but the reason why it wasn't 100-0 was because some people were sick.
Yes, yeah.
It's because they didn't quite grasp the entirety of this
thing. The ones telling you to stay home, we're not staying home.
Right.
And by the way, I on that note, like, listen, my work really didn't have any work from home protocols. We had to put them in place. We are seeing now that our government has no ability to function other than being in D.C. And they're trying to figure that out now. How do we keep functioning?
Well, here's the good thing. I feel like for the most part, people have been figuring out a way to make it work. It may not be ideal that you're not at work checking on. Like, you might look at your productivity over these 2 months. Once it's over with, and be like, man, we really just chasmed hard during coronavirus. But, like, it's too. I think we should all be applauded for how well we've been able to make do with the situation.
It could be much worse.
Yes, absolutely worse. The issues we will have to deal with when there's that time to look back on it. But I think right now we're just doing the best we can, and I think that there's a certain number of governors who are really holding this together way more than the federal government has been doing. And,
we talked in the pre-show, and we don't want to get down into the weeds. But I do want to say, I think there are some governors who are stepping up and being very public about their roles. But I think that we should be very careful not to dive into this hero worship of like, this governor is going to save the nation. Because I've heard from a lot of people that this governor or that one, we're on the West Coast, so everyone's looking at Newsom. People on the East Coast, I'm hearing Cuomo from a lot of people. Yeah. And strangely, I'm hearing Democrats look at Hogan very positively and Republicans look at Cuomo very positively, and just it's very confusing for me. Yeah. And to those who don't know, Hogan is a Republican. He's been vocally anti-Trump before, but now much more. Cuomo is a Democrat, so to have like the attraction across
I don't know how vocally anti-Trump Hogan has been. He's sort of been muttering "fuck that bitch" like as he walks off the stage, as opposed to like holding press conferences.
He's been on his own private YouTube channel saying that bitch Carol Baskins. Nobody's really seen it, but it's out there. But yeah, it's.
I think Hogan should think about the
iron. Yeah, eyebrow ring. It'd be good. Shaved head, eyebrow ring.
Yeah,
a little bit of meth.
The mullet.
The mullet would be good looking.
But I don't know what his numbers are in Dundalk and the Eastern Shore, but he could run those way the fuck up.
Just rising up. But I will say that I think we should be careful about the hero worship because I think you put it aptly when we were discussing it before the show. Like, let's get through the crisis now and let's see where everybody was and let's do the math at it because I think there will be a level of were we as good as we could have been when this started and could we have been done better and who did best through and where are we at the end?
And I mean, I feel like there's a certain degree of it's important for somebody to step up when the time is I mean, like, if we would have talked about Cuomo 6 months ago on the podcast, then we he was one of the most hated governors in the country.
I'm pretty sure we did. And I think we had nothing but negative things to say about him.
He's the fact that he's let the subway go so wrong and everything, like there's a variety of things that people were bashing Cuomo to fuck over.
Hey, and Hogan, we bash him pretty regularly.
And Garcetti, not doing shit.
Newsom, same thing.
The good news is that, and Newsom, I guess, is a little bit of a different case. Not that I won't criticize Newsom, but I'm saying, like, he was kind of new into this, and then the first thing that he really got into were fires, so he hasn't really had, like, a normal...
Yeah.
Nothing
like being elected and then having everything just go wrong as soon as you're in the government. Like, all right, Governor, welcome. It's your first day. So here's the 40 things that are going wrong with the state we need you to fix right now. But I just think we should avoid the hero worship.
Right.
All told, all things in. Just say, hey, listen.
Somebody's allowed to do something good now, and it doesn't make up for bad things that they did.
Right.
But also, like, it's so hard to... Think about it in terms of like this. Let's say you owned a business and the only way you survive is if you cut half your employees.
Yep.
This is just like a simple like sink or swim moment where you have to cut half your employees. Mm-hmm. You don't want to do it. You want to wish everyone had their job, but to survive, you have to do it.
Is what it is.
And you have to now think of and approach the half people and tell them that they lost their jobs and this is why it is and blah, blah, blah. You might not be making the right decision at that moment. It's hard when a lot of things are coming at you at once to feel like you're making right decisions.
Yeah.
And I think that, for the most part, I think a lot of these people are making right decisions, but we have to be, I like the Chris Davis example I gave you earlier. If we were in a World Series game, Game 7, down by 1, runner at second, and Chris Davis is at the plate for the Orioles, you have to throw away all the you're not worth your contract. You hit 200 this season.
Don't boo him.
Yeah,
in that
don't
situation.
boo him right now.
Yeah.
This is the time where, regardless of how you're feeling, you just sort of have to give him your blanket support. Like we're there for you. We're trying to help you do whatever you can to make the best of this situation. If he strikes out in that big situation and now the game's over and we have time to think about it, then yes, that's the opportunity where you can run him over with the bus. But like up until that moment, you have to just sort of let these people have the space to do the best that they can with the situation.
Give them the space to destroy. That's what Corey said. No, and I mean, listen, as much as it pains me, and trust me when I tell you, it pains me to say this, the same is true for the president.
Yeah.
We have this man in the White House at least for the next, 10 months.
Yeah.
Maybe more, depending on if we can even have an election in November. God help me. So all I'm saying is Corey didn't see the press conference today. I checked out just a few minutes of it. And I'm tired of hearing him speak. I'm tired of all the stories about him. But the guy I saw today is different than the guy I saw a week ago, which is much different than the guy I saw a month ago. And, Chris Cuomo, again, not to create hero worship. If there is a Cuomo you should be worshiping, though, it should be Chris. Chris is the guy.
I also don't understand the actual, like, crushing on Andrew Cuomo when there's Chris in the room. Like,
of the Cuomos, they're clearly a better one. What are you thinking about?
It's like all of America's Julia Roberts making wrong decisions. This Lyle Lovett guy looks pretty attractive. No, Julia, what are you doing?
There's another option right here.
You're the most beautiful woman in the world. What are you doing?
But
this great country of ours is Julia Roberts.
As much as it pains me to say, again, the president looked a lot different today, but this is the guy we got. And we've said a lot of negative stuff about Donald Trump thus far, and he has not handled this the way that he should. But we really just need to say, You have the best information around you, and not that he shouldn't get criticized for bad decisions, but it really should be a pitcher coming out at the beginning of or at the end of the second, and you're like, hey, so fastball, really bad decision there. Now we're down 3-0. I need you to go out in the third and make better choices.
Yeah.
Instead of being like, hey, you're a piece of shit and you were never going to ever pitch again in this league except for this next inning because I need you to go out and pitch again.
See, but I agree, but I also think that there are aspects of how Trump has handled this which are, I mean, the problem is that when I'm doing the thing where I'm saying, like, let's give people a break and let them have space. But at the same time, if something comes out that's really across the line, you have to stomp that shit out immediately.
Oh, no.
And I mean, like, I feel like there's a couple, Trump made some statement about, like, the governor of Washington and the governor of Michigan called me asking for aid, and I wasn't going to take their call, but Pence is a better guy than me. And, like, all this, like, they've said horrible things about me in the press, and I don't know if I want to help them. That's just sick. To basically punish people who live in a state because they happen to elect a governor who happen to disagree with you.
Yeah.
Like, I should not be some guy in Detroit dying because Trump has some vendetta against my governor. Like,
And I agree. And that was his press conference on Friday.
Yeah.
And I still just maintain the guy I saw today for the few minutes was much different than the guy from Friday.
Yeah. And I'm if he wants to be solemn and he wants to try and, like, rough this one out and not be Donald Trump, then by all means, I'll welcome him to do that. But I just can't. There's a different, like we were talking pre-show about, like, how Hogan cut disaster relief in his budget.
Yep.
And how I didn't feel comfortable bashing Hogan for that the same way I would bashing Trump for cutting disaster relief.
Yeah.
Mostly because Trump was giving up disaster relief to give billionaires tax breaks.
Yeah.
So that's easy, like,
But Hogan was cutting disaster relief to cut bridge tolls.
Yeah, but I'm saying I can't speak specifically as well to what was happening with Hogan's budget as I can the national budget because I was paying attention to it while it was happening.
That's fair enough.
So
I think you can agree with me though that saying, listen,
if all things are considered equal, then yes, I think Hogan should be criticized for it too. But I'm saying, like, I don't know, so I don't feel comfortable saying that.
But criticizing a pitcher coming off the mound at the end of the second who you're sending back out in the third.
Yeah.
There's two different kinds of criticism. There is the guy who's coming out in the second and not going back in, who you just can beat down because you want him to spend the next few days building himself back up. And there's the, like, I need to give you some constructive criticism because I got to send you back out in three outs. And I need you to do better. But I need you to also not be demolished.
This is the hand we were dealt. So
no, this is the hand we dealt ourselves. We are the dealer.
Yeah.
And we're sitting at the table
I'm saying,
now. So
this is where we stand right now. We were hoping this wasn't going to happen with Trump in office, but now we have to fucking make way, I guess.
To be fair, George W. Bush was the same way. The guy we elected and the guy we got were defined by the times around him. And do I secretly hope that Donald Trump steps up and becomes the president and he should have been from the beginning? Yes. Do I think he will? No. But I think that the last 3 years have ruined his relationship with the media and with the governors and everything else. And now is the kind of the time, and I hate myself for saying this. Now's the time for, like, all right, let's consolidate a little bit and say, yes, Mr. President, I hear what you're saying. What about this response? And on Friday, they were goading him.
I'm 100% behind the idea of that.
Yeah,
but he has to meet us halfway.
I agree. Now, that's the thing.
I mean, it's if he can put on a couple good weeks of looking like he cares and deferring to experts and letting people who know what they're doing be in charge of this whole thing, then I'm feeling better about it.
Yes.
If he's up there saying, like, this is a dumb question, this is why people shouldn't listen to CNN, and, like, at this point, I just don't want to hear it. Like,
I agree. Yeah.
I get the making fun of Fox because a month ago they were all saying go outside and spend money and make out with each other, and this week they're all, like, drunk in their own homes. Did you see the video of Janine Pirro? Like, do you know what's going on with the government these days? And it's just like, what are you doing?
She got into the wine.
Someone had a Rachel pour.
Early, too. Wait, her show's at 7 Eastern. What are you doing?
She doesn't know what day it is. But no, I'm saying, like...
But I agree, yeah.
I at this point, if Fox News is giving people the right news, then I don't want to criticize them and say don't watch it. Like
50% of people are watching just that.
You should be getting the information any way you can, the best that you can.
Yes.
If they're giving out wrong information, then we're going to have to deal with that. And that goes from the news, that's going to go to governors, it's going to go to Trump, it's going to go to anybody. Like,
yes. But let's hope for the best.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed for the best. Fever update. We've now gone back into
the danger zone.
Now we're back in the sweats. So, yeah, we're sweating a lot. So there's one thing I just wanted to touch on before we get to our fun stuff at the end.
Yeah.
So if you guys are still with us, stick around for just a second. And that is, I really want everyone to be taking care of themselves. If you are listening to the sound of my voice, I've read some really kind of bad, disturbing stories for the past few days about suicides are up, 911 calls for self-harm are up, and things like that. Like, it is going to be very difficult. We talked about how it's great to get outside and we want to get outside, but we can't. And I think we're lucky, and I'm lucky because I'm the sick one. I don't have to worry about it. But we're here together. So, Corey and I have been working on a bunch of stuff. Friend of the show, Roberto's here as well. And so we kind of have ourselves to work on things together and to kind of keep each other company. And there's a lot of people who don't have that. Some people are stuck quarantined alone somewhere.
And a lot of people just, psychologically, you're used to having a lot of people around all the time. And if you go from seeing people all the time to never seeing people, it can be really tough for somebody who's more extroverted, you know?
I was going to say, if things had worked out differently and this had struck a few weeks later and I had been living in an apartment with a stranger, basically, sharing a space before everybody took their ads off of Craigslist, it would be weird to be at a place with somebody I don't really know and just kind of stuck there. So I think we have each other to bolster each other. And there are some people who don't have that. So just keep in mind, like, there are ways that you can reach out. We don't have the need to get on like group FaceTimes and like cheer each other up. We kind of did that. There is a posse game night planned for this Friday where we're going to get together with our friends from the East Coast and have a game night together. Just reach out to your friends. Just because you can't be there physically doesn't mean you can't be there for each other.
And call your parents and stuff like that too. Just like, I believe me, I expressed this problem to my dad the other day when I was talking to him, which is like, I always, my problem is I never want to bother anybody when I call them.
Yep.
I want to talk to you for a few minutes and I don't want to bother you. So I don't want to call you when you're in the middle of like 15 things. I want to get you at exactly the right moment. But doing that always makes me go like, well, it's 5:00 right now, East Coast. And I don't know if that's when somebody's trying to get somewhere so I'll wait till 6 to call.
You blink your
eye.
eye.
I forget. And then it's 2 weeks later and I'm just like, did I ever call my dad?
Well, and I mean, I didn't want to have to tell my parents like I wasn't feeling well because I know my mom is 3,000 miles away. And now I had to tell them yesterday when I was going to the hospital because I was worried I'd be out of touch for a while. And now I feel like I've worried them and I'm getting to every 2 hours like, what's your fever? I'm getting the Rachel treatment, which is like, how are your bowel movements? Yes, Mom. I have basically a mother here who's checking on my temperature and my bowel movements every single hour, so we're fine.
My mom's reaction when I called her yesterday was very much like I described it to if I called her and told her I got into a car accident.
Yeah.
Where it was just like, oh, all right, are you okay? Is everyone else okay? Is everyone being safe? Like she was like going through a checklist of like
mom checklist in her head. Yeah.
What's Rob's temperature right now? When's the last time you checked it?
That is what my mom is doing every hour.
Is he alive right now? Is he? Have you checked to make sure? Well, he's sleeping right now. It's like, can you wake him? Do you feel like you should wake him?
Wait, you can usually take a rectal temperature without waking the patient. Just go ahead and just pop that right in there, and we'll see what it is. Now, I'm surprised that my mom has not reached out to you. Because she did text me while I was sleeping this morning and like 3 in a row and didn't get a response from me. And I know she has your number. I'm just waiting for the time when she doesn't reach me. It's like, I'm very worried about Rob. He hasn't responded to my text. Can you please text me and let me know how he is? Like,
I'm worried that I'm just going to get a random text that doesn't like set up like, hey, it's Louise, just letting you know. It's just going to be like, is Rob alive? And I'm just like, I'm like out on the balcony. I'm just like, I don't know.
I hope so. Let me go check.
Should I stop what I'm doing? Who is this?
But the overarching point of this is
somebody who texts the listener line 443-219-7595.
There you go. Wait. I used to have that. I have that somewhere. Hang on. There we go. Text the listener line, 443-219-7595. That's 443-219-7595. We can be your reach out.
Yeah.
I don't know how quickly it'll be answered, but does it still ring your phone?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So, yeah, it'll go straight through. And you can bother Corey at all hours of the day. But, yeah, so the overarching message is, like, make sure we are really terrible at this because our family's on the East Coast. And, again, you do that math. It's like, oh, it's like 5. I'll wait till it's like 7. And next thing you know, it's 11:30.
Yeah.
And, like,
and
now,
I'm just like, now it's too late.
Too late to,
yeah.
even though I know my parents are still up.
Yeah.
You do that math. It's like,
My mom's one of those people who's up to 2, and I'm so like, she's not up.
There's no way.
I shouldn't call her at 9 o'clock. It's too late.
But make sure you're reaching out not only to your family but to your friends, and we need to go above and beyond. And listen, we're in that great place where it's like you can make plans that you may never even have to follow through with. Like, yeah, when this is all over, let's get together.
This is the golden age for I can't wait until we can get back together and see each other. Like the perennial, and to be honest, I would love to catch up with all the people like I meet on set.
Sure.
And be like, we should get dinner sometime. We should go to the movies.
Yeah.
Like I would love to do that. It's just like,
we can't.
We just decided 6:30 to go to a 7 o'clock movie, and I don't want to call people and be like, hey, can you make it to Burbank in 20 minutes?
We're on our way right now.
So like there's sort of an aspect of it never happens, but at the same time, like I would actually love it. But now is the perfect time to just be like, hey, when this is all done, we're going to get it.
Yeah, and
we're going to get a cheeseburger.
We can help the economy by doing that. That's the thing I'm thinking about is like, I want to make plans. I'm not the one who's not going to say yes to everything because, by the way, I'm just not that person. Like, right. I will still say no to plans. I'll still cancel shit. That's who I am as a person. But
I am going to take the first offer that comes across my door, though.
That is absolutely true.
Somebody calls me and they're just like, hey, you want to meet at Santa Monica at 5 o'clock? I'm just like, sold.
Absolutely. Wait, quarantine breaks today? Yes, I'm out there.
Everyone's on the road at the same time. Carmageddon? Yeah, sure. Why not?
But I do think that it can be like, hey, let's plan these things, and we don't know when, but it's just a good excuse to reach out. Like, hey, checking on you and making sure you're doing well. And I like to think that my kind of group reach outs are like the live stuff that I do, because I do get responses back, some comments on them, and people send me messages, and it's like, hey, this is me saying I'm doing fine. It's an invitation for you to reach out to say, hey, how are you doing? And by the way, this podcast is our way of reaching out to you and saying, hey, things aren't great, but we're doing fine. How are you doing? And you should let us know. Yeah. We want to hear back from you.
And please, if there are going to like suicides and depressions and stuff like that, where we came in on this with, there are resources available out there. The suicide prevention hotline is a great service. There are lots of things nowadays where you can sort of get a therapist that you video chat with on your phone, or just call or text or email or whatever the case may be. There's options for everyone kind of thing to find the right help. And if you, it's a really scary time beyond just the everyday scariness of it. And nobody is expected to know how they're going to react to everything that's coming.
Absolutely.
So if something feels different in you than it did before, or you don't feel like sure of yourself, or you don't feel like good, first try and reach out to people close to you, because they might be able to help you. Maybe somebody else has felt something similar.
Oh, just get back in the right mental space.
Yeah. And, like, I really do think that hobbies are important. And I think that now is a great time to pick up a hobby.
Absolutely.
If you're somebody who's used to, like, going out and doing things, and you're trying to figure out how to fill the void, like, learn Spanish, or, like, paint something. Or, like,
work on your Spanish.
Yeah. whatever it may be. Like, you could come out of this with a whole new skill.
And listen, how many people I know who say, I've always wanted to write a screenplay, I've always wanted to write a book. I hear that from people all the time. Now's the time. Yeah. You're stuck at home. And listen, I know I have not written as much as I should have. I'm sure Corey feels the same way. You wish you would have written more during this period. Yeah. Just because also there's a little bit of like, well, now that I can do it, I'm not going to do it.
Well, no, you know what my problem is that there's a certain amount of like putting yourself in the right mind space to act like you're a person in the situation that you're writing. So if I'm writing about a drug dealer, talking to another drug dealer, there's an aspect of me that sort of wants to put myself into the mindset of like, what would I be doing if I was a drug dealer to help make it easier for me to write these characters? And there's a part of me that like goes like, I'm having trouble writing right now. I'm going to go out and just listen to people talk. And like, that'll help me. Like that's a trick that works for me sometimes.
Right. But you can't
but
do
I can't do that now.
Yeah.
So like, there's like things that it just feels like I got like a pebble in my shoe or something like that. It's just not right. And it's making it harder for me to write. But at the same time, like sometimes it's not about like getting a tangible number of pages done. It's about putting in the work and putting in the effort. And even if it doesn't like equal something that's going to be shot one day, like just doing the work will make you feel better. And
if it's your first time, by the way, you're gonna have a lot of drafts. Just bowl through that first draft, get it down.
It's awful too. Believe me, and I'll say this from like a professional level, like Parasite, the first cut draft or cut version of Parasite, like the initial time the editor went through it and just put it in order, it looked horrible. Like the worst student film you've ever seen. Nothing worked. It just felt awkward and terrible. It takes a little while of like sort of molding around the edges of the stone until you get the statue underneath. So even if you do something and it doesn't feel like good, just know that everyone feels that way. Everyone starts with something that's not good and then fixes it. Like that's sort of how it works.
But you got to have the original thing to start with.
Right.
You got to get it down just so you can start.
It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be what it is.
But if you are,
you can even write like heartfelt moment here. If you don't have it at that exact moment, just come back to it when you're feeling sappy.
But if you are feeling like life is getting too much and you really need to talk to someone, it's 1-800-273-8255. That's the National Suicide Prevention Hotline, which is not even just for that. It's for people who are feeling off, feeling like they have no one to talk to and feeling like things are getting desperate. There's someone always there to talk to you.
Because those hotlines are not just for people who are like sitting there with the gun in their mouth kind of thing. It's for, I feel like I might be going down the road where I might end up here.
Yes.
And it's way easier to get somebody earlier on that journey than it is to get them when they're right at the end.
Yeah.
So, it's nothing to be ashamed of if you're having any kind of difficulty now, and you should reach out if you need something. And
again, that's 800-273-8255. It's suicidepreventionlifeline.org. They actually have a chat there, which I didn't know, but you can do a live chat with someone. You can do a call. So if anybody needs those resources, can we make sure we put that in the show notes as well, so they have the link? So before we get out of here, we did in the intro talk about doing a little bit of spoilers. So if you guys are one of the, 2 people in the country who haven't checked it out, you might want to turn us off now, because we're going to talk a little bit about the phenomena sweeping the country. By the way, chills have returned to fever sweats, so we are running on fumes again.
The sweats are boiling the.
We're going to be talking about Tiger King, which I watched fully through twice now, because I watched it and then I recommended it to Corey, and then we as a household watched it again. So Tiger King. Yeah, exciting stuff.
Let me say this up front. I realize that Joe Exotic has broken the law and needs to go to jail for the crime that he went through, and I think that a lot of other people probably should have had a little bit of jail time thrown their way as well. But I would also like to point out that I feel like there should be a different justice system for the redneck community, because how many fucking people in your life do you relate to in the Joe Exotic way? Like, you've known people sort of like him, right?
I have, yes.
Yeah. And there's almost I feel like I've seen that guy over on the side of the road with the sheriff before, where it's just like, God damn it, Joe, you can't do that. And then it's just like, you can't try and jump the Dairy Queen with your Trans Am. You just see a car in the middle of a building, and it's just like,
how did that even happen?
You're just like, under normal circumstances, if that was me, I'd be going to jail for 10 years on that shit. The Dairy Queen extravaganza.
But Joe,
for Joe, like, he's just a dumb idiot. Like, don't blame him. Like,
we get a lot of
the guys part of me that just wants to be like, oh, get on with it, you. You little rascal.
The guys with the cardboard license plates that are like, I give myself the right to drive. Here, I'm at 00001. Joe's America.
Right.
Those guys.
I'm a sovereign citizen. All right, fine, whatever. I don't even want to fucking deal with this.
All right, man. Go on.
I mean, the one that shocks me is that Carol Baskin agrees to be a part of this, not realizing how like
she thought for sure she was going to take down Joe Exotic.
There were so many memes of comparing Carol to Hillary and Joe Exotic to Trump, and I think part of the Carol to Hillary comparison, which I find so great, is that I feel like deep down inside of her, Hillary doesn't realize that a lot of people hate her.
Yeah.
Like there's almost like well, as soon as they get to know the real me, they're not going to hate me anymore. Like as soon as Carol Baskin's like, oh great, a long deep dive documentary that will make it clear that I did not kill my husband. Like
I think that she went into it thinking they're not going to talk about this. And then eventually they did. And then she was like, well, no, it's okay. It's okay.
They have to bring it up. I mean,
they're going to bring it up. And when they do, we're finally going to get to the bottom of this. And I'm going to be shown to be innocent. And now, apparently, by the way, I saw the story today. A lot of tips are coming in about this cold case. If Carol ends up in jail for more than 22 years, which is what Joe got, that there will be sweet justice. That's all I can say. And if Joe gets out, because honestly, for getting us through this crisis.
Hey, listen, real quick, just as another thing, despite my claims that there should be a different legal system for the redneck impaired and stuff like that, I'm also not of the mind that like Cardi B should be sending money to Joe Exotic. I mean, like,
everybody needs money on their books now. Come on, everybody needs money on their books.
I do feel like he is a piece of shit who deserves to be punished somewhat for what he did, but I don't feel like he should be.
So he's been in jail for a while now, like since what, like 20.
I feel like when you threaten somebody's death so many times, it kind of loses its luster to a certain point.
Are you convinced that there was a scheme that came together that he drove to try and kill Carol Baskins?
I think that he thought that he was definitely getting somebody who was going to do it.
I don't think you watched that last episode enough.
No, I mean,
I think you got to rewatch episode 7 because I think all of this was his partner.
I know. I get what you're saying. I did some additional research outside of the show.
Oh, okay. Stuff that wasn't shown.
Talked about things that were included in a trial that for everyone who's saying Joe is this great guy and should be exonerated.
I don't think he's a great guy.
They put things that didn't make it to the series from the trial that make it clear that he was very interested in somebody doing this.
Oh, yeah.
And that he thought he was getting somebody who was going to kill her.
Okay. So,
but I think what he assumed, by the way, $3,000 to $5,000 is not the cost of a subtle hitman. I'm just going to put it out there. Like,
wait, unless you're in Baltimore.
Don't think you're just going to toss somebody 200 bones and they're going to be able to keep a murder off the books. Like,
unless you're in Baltimore, where the going rate is $500 to $1,000 for a hit.
Oh, yeah, but I'm saying in Baltimore, too, you have, like almost no murder cases actually going to a guilty plea. So, I mean, like,
professional.
There's a little bit more of a shadow economy going on here that Joe is not like put into.
Here's what I'm going to ask you though.
Yeah.
For saving us and our mental states through this national crisis.
Pardon?
Is there some sort of pardon that is deserved for Joe Exotic? Because remember, he's in federal prison, which means the president could say, you know what? Now that we're outside of this quarantine era, for getting us through this, Joe, we're gonna shorten your sentence from 22 years to 2 years. We find out if Carol actually did kill her husband, and he helped solve the murder of Don. Is that justified?
What if he was in fact Oklahoma's Serpico? He was just doing the tiger farming thing to expose the underbelly of the tiger.
By the way, I think the most interesting part of the entire thing was after the credits, that little bit that ran that showed him as being like, we shouldn't be breeding these beautiful animals. He started as a person just like Carol, who was like, we're not breeding them. We're just protecting the ones and letting them live their lives.
Right.
But then he realized there's money to be made here. I can't make any money. I'm losing money just protecting them. So I got to do a little bit of breeding and a little bit of petting to pay for everything else.
Yeah.
And I see like, oh, Carol went down this road too. And there'll be somebody who comes in after Carol who does the same thing, who feeds her husband to a tiger. Because clearly Carol fed her husband to a tiger.
The libertarian part of me enjoys the everyone can own a tiger part of this.
By the way, Mr. Baker, if you're watching this, we are entirely joking. You cannot own a tiger. Do not move to a state where you can own a tiger.
I joke that I want to tell my dad about this documentary because it's so incredible, but at the same time, I don't want to tell him because he will 100% buy a tiger.
Like, he will be Doc Antle within 6 months.
He's gonna have multiple wives and his
okay, maybe I shouldn't say that. Good
South Carolina ranch, paying them all $100 a week to.
But he would 100% move to Florida and buy a tiger. That will 100% happen.
Probably just buy out Carol. Listen, this thing's getting a little hot here. How much you would want to give to just give your zoo up? Like,
well, no, because remember, none of her tigers have been cuddled, and he will definitely want to cuddle the tigers.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know,
your dad is a little more like Joe Exotic than I've actually put together, but he's a little bit like Joe Exotic, libertarian. I could see your dad walking around a tiger cage, being like, "I'm not changing the way I dress." Fuck that bitch, Carol Baskins.
Not changing the way I dress. I'm wearing these shorts all the time. Yeah, I'm gay. I don't care. Perhaps I've said too much.
Oh man.
There's so much. The number of times too, like, because Rob watched it first, and the number of times where like I saw something happen, and like I just like made like a side-eyed look at you, and then you were just like, "Go on." It's like.
No, my favorite
what
thing
you think is about to happen is not about to happen, and it's going to be something better.
Yeah.
And go.
The first night after after they watched the first episode, having Corey or having Roberto turn and be like, "So we can agree we're all on Team Joe Exotic, right?" And Corey being like, "Yeah, definitely," and me being like, "Ooh, just wait, things are gonna get crazy."
I still feel like. I mean, like, I know attempted murder is a crime, and sure. I know that hiring a hitman, even if they are not successful, is a crime. I do feel like that he's kind of doing, and all the animal charges are really what fucked him. But I sort of feel like he's doing murder time for not murder. Yeah, a little bit. Like
he's doing tiger killing time for a murder, basically.
Well, I always felt like if you were a prosecutor. One of the easiest ways to get convictions, like 100% of the time, would just be going in front of the jury and just being like, this man right here accused of murder, who we know has killed 5 dogs. Yeah. And then the jury would just be like, I don't even want to hear the rest of this thing.
If you had a video of every person in Baltimore kicking a dog, that murder conviction would go way up. Because as soon as I see you kick a dog, I'm like, he's capable. He could kill a human being.
He could do it.
He could kill a human being. Clearly, look at this. He's kicking dogs.
Yeah.
He could kill a human being. If you haven't gotten it from here, you should have watched Tiger King. You should be watching Tiger King. Now that we're done that, we're looking for our next show to watch. Don't watch anything pandemic related. I don't know why.
I don't get it. That. Like, I know that you don't like watching cooking things because like it doesn't appeal to you. Yeah. But there's a part of me that feels comfort in these times of like watching Kitchen Nightmares and like seeing Gordon at like a packed restaurant where I'm just like, oh, I remember what that was like. I can't wait to go to a restaurant again. You know, like
I don't like
there's
any
a part
of those
that's
shows
like comforting to me at this moment in time, but like
even Taffer. I tried to watch a little bit of Taffer and I can't watch him. It's just
really?
Like now in this, I'm just like, I want to totally escape. I want to go into the world of exotic pet.
You want to?
Yeah. I want to get lost in something. I watched Unbelievable.
I will say the great thing about the Netflix documentary era that we're living in, like and I'm saying Netflix documentary because it came around at the same time as Netflix. Yeah. Netflix gave documentaries a better chance to sort of become a bigger thing. But you could, thank Michael Moore or Morgan Spurlock or anybody who made like sort of bigger budget documentaries recently. But the number of times where I have somebody come up to me and just being like, do you know how they get escargot? And I'm just like, well, I mean, it's snails, right? Yeah. And it's France and it's just like, there's a documentary on Netflix you need to see. And then like just hearing that goes like, yes, I do need to see that. Mm-hmm. I never had any interest in the subject.
But now
I don't want escargot. I don't like escargot. But for some reason, I feel like there's a seedy underbelly in this business. I need to know.
I'm going to watch 9 hours about the seedy escargot market and how these things work. Yes.
And then 10 minutes into the first episode, you see some guy with a monocle and you're just like, oh, I'm going to watch this thing till the end. I don't even know. I don't even know when I'm going to watch it.
Mr. Monopoly is in the escargot market. Game on. Let's do this.
All right. Well, I think it's time to put Rob to bed.
Yes, absolutely.
I could feel over the last 10 minutes here of the podcast, I could feel like your tank emptying.
Yeah, I'm running on reserves. We're headed for the ground.
Well, if you need to catch up on more reserves, you know where you can get them?
Where's that?
OTheanthem.com. Core to OTheanthem.com. O The Anthem on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and the listener line. 443-219-7595.
What's that number again?
443-219-7595. You can find me and my website, CoreyBakerFilmmaker.com, Facebook.com/CoreyBakerFilm, and at LegendsB5 on Twitter, Instagram. Thinking about adding TikTok into that equation as well. I've signed up for a TikTok. I haven't done anything.
What's your account on TikTok?
At LegendsB5.
Okay, yeah.
But I figured now TikTok seems to be popping a lot more now that people are home, so I'll go check it out.
1 year later, after Rob told you to join TikTok,
I've had it for basically a year at this point. I just haven't done anything. But
the O The Anthem podcast, always just slightly behind the latest trend.
Well, this whole podcast started when Corolla was starting his podcast in the shadows. I was like, we should get into this thing, and you're just like, that's a stupid idea.
Yes, see, look, and then I learned from that mistake, and I saw TikTok, and I was like, we should get on TikTok.
That's why I'm doing that right.
It's crazy. No.
And I will have a review for Portrait of a Lady on Fire on Thursday. And thinking about doing a new series talking about watching movies in terms of how I use it to inspire me for movies that I make coming up here. So, just keep an eye out for that stuff.
All right. And of course, you can find more of me at Robert N. Cheek on all your social networks. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, and TikTok at Robert N. Cheek, where my account is humorous as hell. So go check out those things. Tried a Switch video, not clothing switch, just a Switch. I thought it was pretty humorous. But also, I've been feverish for a time now, so who knows? RobertNCheek.com, still a work in progress. So in the meantime, you can find all the videos at youtube.com/RobCheek, including the Everyman movie reviews. New review came out yesterday for Blade Runner. I got one coming out Thursday for Dolomite Is My Name. And then that's the end of what I have recorded. So we'll see what pops up. Portrait of a Lady on Fire is on the list. I have a bunch of other ones I have to do, but that is completely dependent upon energy levels and time in the next few days. So I guess we will see. But all that's available on youtube.com/RobCheek. And if you prefer the podcast, anchor.fm/Everyman Movie Reviews. And of course, you can get this podcast at anchor.fm/O The Anthem.
Yes, indeed.
And youtube.com/O The Anthem. And you can always find us, as I've said before, at O The Anthem on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. In these uncertain times, we will have updates going there all the time. So make sure you're following along so you get the latest information from us.
Yep. And just as we stated up front, we're going to try and keep to our weekly schedule as best we can. It might be delayed a little bit like today's was. It might be... we might go dark for a week if things need to. Obviously, the health of both of us is the most important part.
Absolutely, yeah.
And in terms of just this podcast, the health of everyone is important. But for us making this podcast,
what do you think, Corey? Could we record if I was in a ventilator and I was just in a hospital room?
Nah.
Beep, beep. Hey guys, welcome to episode 315 of the podcast.
I feel like I would be able to hear you just as well as when you were wearing your mask.
Oh, probably, yeah. Although I would have a mask on. So just go, hey guys, welcome to episode 315 of the podcast.
Rob, how are you doing today? Alive. Anywho,
we'll do our best.
Yeah.
It's 312 consecutive weeks of brand new content, and I don't want that to end. So even if it's a short version, we made it the full hour today.
Yeah.
So we're going to try to push through. Hopefully by next week I'm feeling better, so it won't be an issue. I guess we'll see.
Yeah, and hopefully I'm not far behind you.
Absolutely right.
So. Well, everyone, please stay safe. I think we've done good here today. as much as we can.
We've done something. I don't know if it's good. But as always, you are listening to the O The Anthem podcast, part of the O The Anthem digital network. For Corey, this is Rob. Have a great week, everybody.
Take care of one another.
Take care of yourselves and each other.